So I was sitting in a coffee shop the other day, just, watching the line. And I saw a customer step up, tap their phone to the payment reader to buy a sandwich, and just walk away.
Yeah, it's something you literally see a dozen times a day.
Right. But in that moment, it really struck me just how quietly and, well, completely finances changed. I mean, there was no bank teller.
No signature either.
Exactly. No waiting at all.
Yeah.
In less than a second, a machine somewhere made a decision. It either trusted that transaction or it didn't.
And it is entirely seamless. Like, we really don't think about the monumental architecture operating in the background of that single tap.
No, we don't.
Mostly because it's designed to be completely invisible to us.
But that single tap relies on a vast, invisible architecture. And right now, that architecture is being completely rewritten.
It really is.
We are looking at FinTech Today financial technology, and we're jumping into a deep dive on some incredible source material about the profound ways artificial intelligence is reshaping how money moves.
Which is a massive topic.
Huge. And our mission for this deep dive is to explore this massive tension at the very heart of this shift. Because on one side, AI is being hailed as the ultimate stabilizer, right?
Right, this tireless system processing oceans of data to stop fraud and keep global finance humming.
Exactly. But on the other side, skeptics in the source material are warning that we're basically handing the keys over to a dangerous black box,
A black box that operates with zero transparency.
which could trigger some pretty catastrophic consequences down the line.
Yeah, and to really pull apart that tension, we're going to examine 3 specific battlegrounds where this is playing out right now.
Okay, what are they?
We're looking at the invisible shield of fraud detection, the high-stakes world of algorithmic trading, and finally, the frontline interface of customer service.
All right, let's start with fraud detection, because it takes us right back to that coffee shop.
It does.
Because if that transaction gets hijacked, or if someone clones your digital wallet,
Yeah.
there's not just a minor inconvenience. We're talking about a massive, sophisticated global industry where billions of dollars just disappear every single year.
Right. And protecting everyday transactions from that kind of assault, well, it used to rely on human oversight and very rigid guidelines.
Like, how rigid are we talking?
So historically, banks relied heavily on rule-based systems. A programmer would essentially write a list of hard-coded red flags, like
Right.
if a transaction originates in another country, flag it. Or if a purchase is over $5,000 at a retailer the customer has never visited, decline it.
Got it.
For decades, that was the standard defense.
Okay, let's unpack this for a second. If we think about that old rule-based system, it was basically like a club bouncer.
A bouncer, yeah.
The bouncer checks your ID, looks at the date of birth, and if you meet the one rule you're over 21, you get in.
Yeah.
Very binary.
Exactly. But the criminals evolved.
Right. Modern fraud networks test thousands of transactions in a matter of minutes. They're just probing a bank's defenses for a weak spot.
And a bouncer checking IDs one by one just can't keep up with the coordinated mob moving at the speed of light.
Which forced the financial sector to pivot.
It did. They pivoted to modern machine learning. So instead of hard-coded rules, these new systems analyze behavioral patterns across just enormous data sets.
Right, they're looking at variables a human could never process in real time.
Exactly. They track your spending habits, sure, but they also analyze the specific device you use. They check the IP address. They even look at your geographic velocity.
Geographic velocity, like how fast you're traveling.
Yeah, meaning, is it physically possible for you to buy a coffee in Chicago and then swipe your card at a luxury boutique in London 2 hours later?
Wow. And they even look at how you physically interact with your phone, right? Things like typing speed or the angle you hold your device.
They absolutely do. Biometric telemetry is a huge part of modern fraud detection.
That's wild.
It is. Over time, the AI builds this staggeringly detailed, multidimensional model of what normal looks like for you.
So, if the old system was a bouncer, the modern AI system is more like a highly trained detective who has just been quietly following you around for years.
That's a great way to put it.
This detective knows your exact routine. They know you buy a latte at 8 a.m., they know you hold your phone in your left hand, and they know you always shop at a specific grocery store.
Right.
So if someone steals your card information, puts on a mask, and tries to pretend to be you online, the detective instantly spots that the typing rhythm is off, or the geographic location doesn't make sense.
And it shuts the transaction down in milliseconds.
And there's a catch here, isn't there?
Yeah, what's fascinating here is the darker side of having a system that complex. Because while that behavioral detective is incredibly smart, It's evaluating thousands of hidden mathematical weights to arrive at a decision.
Mhm.
And sometimes it makes a mistake. We call these false positives.
Which is when a totally legitimate purchase gets blocked, and you are left standing at the register looking like a criminal.
Exactly. And this brings us to the black box paradox highlighted in the sources.
Right, the black box.
These machine learning models have become so intricate that they literally function as a black box. The developers who built the initial architecture do not write the specific logic for every single decision anymore.
Because the AI teaches itself. Right.
Yes, it teaches itself how to weigh those thousands of variables using deep artificial neural networks.
Meaning, when a transaction gets flagged, the human engineers who built the system can't just open up the code and easily point to the one reason why it happened.
They can't. The decision is buried in a matrix of statistical probabilities.
That sounds, well, really frustrating.
It is. Put yourself in the shoes of the consumer. Imagine the striking irony of this situation. You're standing at a hotel desk in a foreign country trying to pay for your room and your card is declined.
Okay, panic sets in.
Right. So you call the bank, you answer all the security questions, you prove you are who you say you are. But the representative on the phone cannot override the system because the system won't explain why it thinks you're a fraud.
Oh, wow.
You are locked out of your own financial life by a mathematical equation that no human being can decipher.
That is infuriating just to think about. I mean, you're trying to prove you exist to a machine that just refuses to show its work.
Exactly.
It makes the system undeniably safer from large-scale theft, sure, but it completely removes human agency from the process.
It creates an incredibly opaque financial ecosystem.
Okay, but that exact same hyperfast pattern recognition, the stuff that spots a thief in milliseconds and think, isn't just being used defensively anymore.
No, not at all.
Wall Street realized that if an AI can analyze thousands of variables to predict consumer behavior, it can use that exact same processing power to predict market behavior.
Which moves us from defense to offense.
Right, diving into our second battleground, algorithmic trading.
And the scale of this offense is staggering. You have to remember, financial markets are living organisms.
They react constantly.
Instantly.
Yeah.
To breaking news, subtle shifts in interest rates, supply chain disruptions, even weather patterns.
Yeah.
Human traders simply do not have the cognitive bandwidth or, frankly, the physical reaction time to process that influx of information.
And here's where it gets really interesting. Because an AI trading system does not have human biological limits.
Right.
These algorithms were digesting data sets that are almost unfathomable. The research says they aren't just looking at historical stock prices or quarterly earnings reports.
They go way beyond that.
They're scraping the internet, parsing the sentiment of millions of social media posts, analyzing satellite imagery of retail parking lots to predict quarterly sales, and tracking cargo ships across the ocean, all in real time.
Yeah, the mechanics behind how they process this are brilliant, specifically through two techniques the sources highlight. The first is neural networks, which we touched on with fraud.
Right.
In trading, they're designed to recognize incredibly subtle, non-linear correlations in the market.
Okay, what does that look like?
Well, a human might notice that when oil prices go up, airline stocks go down. That's linear. But a neural network might notice a correlation between the price of lithium, the weather in South America, and the social media sentiment around an electric vehicle CEO,
Wow.
identifying a pattern that lasts for only 3 seconds.
And then they capitalize on it. And the second technique the sources mention is reinforcement learning, which is basically learning through extreme trial and error.
Exactly. The algorithm is placed in a simulated market environment and tasked with maximizing a reward, in this case, profit.
Right, show me the money.
Exactly. It tests millions of different trading strategies, playing them out over and over again. When a strategy loses money, the algorithm adjusts its approach. When a strategy makes money, it reinforces that pathway.
And firms deploying these advanced quantitative models have seen extraordinary returns by discovering market inefficiencies that are just entirely invisible to the human eye.
Absolutely invisible.
Wait, let me challenge that logic for a second. The supporters of this technology claim that replacing human traders with AI removes the emotional volatility from investing.
They do argue that, yes.
They say that humans are driven by panic during a crash or irrational greed during a bubble, and that those emotions distort judgment. So if we hand the wheel over to algorithms that simply follow cold, hard data, shouldn't the markets actually become perfectly stable?
This raises a really important question about systemic risk, because the reality is quite the opposite.
Really?
Yeah. When you remove human emotion, you don't necessarily get stability, you often get automated herd behavior. And that introduces profound fragility into the system.
Because these algorithms, while slightly different from firm to firm, are often looking at the exact same massive data sets and hunting for the same micro efficiencies.
And reacting at the same millisecond.
Right.
Imagine a scenario where thousands of distinct trading algorithms all detect a slight negative anomaly in a specific sector at the exact same moment.
Oh.
They're programmed to mitigate risk instantly, so they all execute massive sell orders simultaneously.
It's just a total dump.
Yeah, the price of the asset collapses in a fraction of a second. This isn't theoretical. These are called flash crashes.
Right. And when that flashes red on a screen, that's not just some billionaire hedge fund losing money in a vacuum. That is the listener's 401k.
Exactly.
That is someone's retirement fund plummeting 10% in the time it takes to blink, driven entirely by bots talking to other bots.
It's terrifying.
The volatility is amplified before a human regulator can even comprehend that a crash has started, let alone intervene to halt trading.
And that fragility is compounded by another technical flaw called overfitting.
Overfitting, okay.
This occurs during that trial and error training phase we talked about. If a machine learning model is trained too intensely on a specific set of historical data, it doesn't actually learn the broad underlying principles of economics.
What does it learn then?
It memorizes the quirks and anomalies of that specific past data.
Oh, I see. So it's like a student who memorizes the exact answers to a practice test.
That's a perfect analogy.
They think they're a genius, and they feel completely prepared. But when they sit down to take the actual exam, the teacher has slightly changed the phrasing of the questions. Because the student only memorized the past, rather than understanding the concepts, they fail spectacularly.
That is exactly what happens to an overfitted trading algorithm. It develops a strategy that looks absolutely flawless when back-tested against the market conditions of the 2010s.
It thinks it's found the ultimate cheat code.
Right. But markets are dynamic. Geopolitics change, new technologies emerge, global pandemics happen.
Yeah, reality shifts.
And when it does and presents a scenario that wasn't perfectly represented in the training data, the overfitted algorithm doesn't know how to adapt. It executes disastrous trades based on a reality that no longer exists.
So the massive takeaway from our sources on trading is a paradox.
A huge paradox.
The very speed and processing power that allows AI to capitalize on market opportunities is the exact same mechanism that creates terrifying light speed instability. It's an incredible tool, but it's operating on a razor's edge.
Speed is a massive asset until the exact moment it becomes a systemic liability.
All right, so we've spent some time exploring the high-speed background math, the macro level of fraud prevention and Wall Street trading. Let's bring this back down to the screen in your hand. Where does the everyday consumer actually come face-to-face with fintech AI?
Right, the third battleground.
According to the source material, the most direct interaction happens in customer service.
It really is the most visible manifestation of this shift. Banks and financial platforms are aggressively deploying AI-driven chatbots to handle consumer inquiries.
Right.
And the underlying technology driving this is natural language processing, or NLP.
Okay, let's actually explain how NLP functions, because I think people assume it's like a tiny digital person reading their message and actually understanding the meaning.
They do, yeah.
But that's not it at all. NLP is highly statistical. When you type a sentence into a bank's chat window, the AI breaks your sentence down into smaller pieces called tokens. It isn't comprehending your frustration. It is mathematically analyzing the probability of what those words mean together based on millions of past conversations and predicting the most mathematically appropriate response.
It maps human language into numerical space. And look, from an operational standpoint, the benefits are immense.
Oh, absolutely.
For financial institutions, it drastically reduces staffing costs. They don't need a massive call center running overnight.
And for the consumer, it provides a 247 automated assistant.
Right. If it's 2 a.m. and you realize your credit card is missing, you don't want to wait on hold for 30 minutes.
No one wants that.
The NLP system recognizes the tokens for lost card, runs the probability, and instantly triggers the script to freeze your account. It is highly efficient.
So what does this all mean? We are replacing human interaction with predictive text models to save money and increase speed. But there's a glaring blind spot here.
A very big one.
Code is great at efficiency, but code doesn't understand context when a customer's life actually falls apart.
Right, and the sources refer to this as the empathy gap.
The empathy gap.
NLP handles routine, binary tasks beautifully, But personal finance is rarely purely routine.
Right, it gets messy.
Consider a customer who has suddenly lost their job, is facing unexpected medical debt, and is trying to restructure a loan to avoid defaulting.
Oh, man.
That is a highly sensitive, nuanced human crisis. When they reach out to their bank for help, they are caught in a loop with an NLP system that only knows how to offer rigid, scripted paths.
It's essentially statistically predicting that you need an FAQ link about late fees while you are desperately trying to explain that you can't feed your family this week.
And that creates a massive breakdown in trust. Human beings naturally hesitate to share deeply vulnerable financial details with the machine.
Of course we do.
We instinctively recognize that a predictive text model cannot exercise compassion or authorize a nuanced exception to a rule. The sources emphasize that while AI can route information, human judgment and empathy remain irreplaceable in high-stakes personal finance.
You can program a machine to freeze an account, but you cannot program a machine to care why the account is overdrawn.
Not yet. And the source material suggests perhaps we never will.
That really brings a single powerful theme to the surface here. Whether we're talking about the black box of fraud detection locking you out of your account, the overfitting of trading bots threatening your retirement, or the empathy gap of a chatbot when you're in financial distress.
Yeah,
The overarching challenge with AI in finance fundamentally comes down to trust and accountability.
it absolutely does. And if we look at the future trends highlighted in the research, establishing that trust requires solving a massive underlying issue, which is the integrity of the data itself. Financial institutions are vacuuming up enormous amounts of personal data to train these systems. But data is not inherently neutral. It is a historical record. And this introduces the critical problem of bias in AI algorithms.
This is a crucial point to clarify. When people hear bias in AI, they often picture a machine that has somehow developed a prejudice, like a sci-fi villain.
Right, like the machine has an agenda.
But the machine is just doing math. The bias is purely a data problem.
Exactly. An algorithm is only as objective as the data it is trained on. If you feed an AI historical lending data to teach it how to assess credit risk, the AI absorbs every pattern in that data set.
Okay.
But historical lending data contains the mathematical results of past human inequalities, decades where certain zip codes or demographics were systematically denied loans due to human prejudice.
Right.
The AI doesn't know the historical context of redlining or discrimination. It just sees a statistical correlation between a certain zip code and a high loan denial rate in the past.
So it's the ultimate garbage in, garbage out scenario,
Yeah.
but mathematically sanitized. The AI assumes the past was perfectly rational, so it just bakes those old, flawed human biases right into its brand new predictive algorithm.
Yeah, automatically rejecting applicants from those same zip codes today.
Wow.
It scales historical flaws with devastating efficiency, which is why regulators are now aggressively pushing for a framework called explainable AI, or XAI.
Wait, how does that actually work in practice? Because we
Yeah.
established earlier that these neural networks are black boxes, and even the engineers don't know exactly how the thousands of variables are weighed.
Right.
So how do you force a black box to explain itself?
Through a process of reverse engineering the model's decisions, engineers use what are called perturbation techniques.
Perturbation technique.
Yeah. Imagine you apply for a mortgage and the AI denies it. To figure out why, a diagnostic program essentially runs hundreds of slightly altered versions of your exact application through the black box.
Okay, slightly altered how?
It tweaks your income up by $5, it changes your age by 1 year, it slightly alters your debt-to-income ratio.
Oh, I see.
It watches how the black box reacts to every tiny change until the decision finally flips from denied to approved.
Oh, that's brilliant. By systematically poking the algorithm with these tiny variations, they can map exactly which specific data point carried the most weight and triggered the denial.
Precisely. It allows the institution to say, the model denied you specifically because your debt utilization crossed the 30% threshold, rather than just saying, the computer said no.
Right.
Explainable AI is the critical bridge to ensuring these systems aren't illegally factoring in things like gender or relying on flawed geographic correlations.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the tension we started with the ultimate stabilizer versus the dangerous black box, it doesn't resolve with one side winning.
No, it doesn't.
The sources are ultimately pointing toward a necessary synthesis. We aren't looking at a future where machines simply run the global economy unchecked, nor are we going back to the days of human tellers and paper ledgers.
The consensus points heavily toward a hybrid model, sometimes referred to as centaur systems.
Centaur systems like half human, half horse. but half human, half machine.
Exactly. You deploy the AI to do exactly what it excels at, processing unimaginable oceans of data, spotting microscopic patterns in global trading, and filtering out millions of fraudulent transactions in milliseconds.
Let the machine do the heavy lifting.
Right. But you deliberately maintain a layer of human analysts above the automation. Humans provide the common sense to recognize when an algorithm is overfitting, the empathy to handle complex customer crises, and the oversight to audit the data for bias.
Because at the end of the day, a machine cannot take responsibility for a mistake.
It
A
can.
neural network can't apologize for crashing a market or denying a legitimate loan. Efficiency can be automated, but accountability requires a human being.
The technology is an unprecedented tool, but it is entirely dependent on the wisdom of the people guiding it.
We have covered incredible ground today in this deep dive. We started by looking at how AI brings this almost unimaginable speed to our money, catching digital thieves with biometric precision, executing trades faster than the speed of human thought, and completely reshaping the way banks talk to us.
It's completely revolutionary.
But we also peeled back the curtain to see the fragility underneath, right? The danger of flash crashes, the frustration of the empathy gap, and the urgent need for explainable AI to ensure our financial futures aren't decided by a biased black box.
It is a profound structural shift that affects every single person interacting with the modern economy.
So I want to leave you with this thought. The next time you are in that coffee shop and you just casually tap your phone to pay for your order, take a second to realize what just happened.
Yeah.
Ask yourself who or what actually approved that transaction. And if that machine suddenly decides you aren't who you say you are, how will you prove to a black box that you actually exist?